Chat room, take one.
Have you ever had a dream or a goal based on a movie you watched?
Yes, I wanted to start a hotel for dogs because of Hotel for Dogs.
Yes, after I watched Spider-Man for like 6 months, I tried to make a web slinger and it was crazy.
Every time I watch a Rocky movie, I get really inspired to work out and start running and stuff.
Every time I watch a basketball movie, I watch them try harder, so it makes me want to get better at basketball.
Whenever I was 11 or 12 years old, I watched Spider-Man, and this was the first time in a while, and I was like, you know what? I'll make a web slinger made out of cardboard. It was like little motors and everything. It was fun.
Anytime I watch a Rocky movie, I get really inspired to like go on a run or like try boxing or just like work out or anything.
Every basketball movie I watch, they grind and get better at what they do, and so it inspires me to get better and try harder.
I've always loved taking care of like dogs and cats. So whenever I watched Hotel for Dogs when I was younger, I really thought I could start up one and like get big bucks in the business.
How would you say culture affects the way that you live?
I think a big thing for me is music. I think the culture now with music, it's everywhere and it's really popular now. So it's kind of hard to avoid it sometimes, and I can fall into that trap of like listening to stuff I shouldn't be listening to.
Yeah, a huge one for me is kind of fashion, because a lot of my friends, if you're not wearing the latest and greatest things, then you're looked down upon. And so that culture is all around you of like what you should be wearing and how you get judged if it's not something that's worth a lot of money. So it's pretty hard to get rid of that and not worry about what other people think of you.
What are some ways that Jesus lived differently than the rest of the world?
He would take care of those in need, and I think a lot of the time in our culture we're kind of told to do that, but we don't actually act upon it.
I think it was in every way he was completely countercultural.
I mean, Jesus, that's what he was all about, is that he would go to the lepers and he would go to the people that weren't accepted and were diseased and everyone else stayed away from. He would go to them and show them love. I think that one always just stands out to me because, you know, that's what our culture is kind of about, is just like being you and accepting everybody for who they are. But really, Jesus did that. And it's culturally defiant because, you know, it's be who you are when you meet my expectations of you. And he was the complete opposite. He said, come as you are.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like kind of like what you said, our culture is like, it's really like they claim it's really accepting and stuff like that. And that's also what Jesus is, but it's kind of counterintuitive and it's not always actually the same, but they just say it's the same.
Do you think that God asks us to live differently than the rest of the world? Why or why not?
I say yes, because if we all did the same thing, we wouldn't get anywhere in life.
The world's, you know, full of sin and he's sinless. So obviously, and we're supposed to follow him. And so that's completely different from what the world is.
Yeah, he does, just because the world is filled with sin, and whenever he asks us to live differently, he's asking us to like show an example of what his love is. It doesn't necessarily influence everybody, but it just needs to influence one other person, so then they can do that, and it continues.
I mean, the world tells us to kind of going back to like being yourself. It's a lot of it pushes to do what's fun and live your life to the fullest. And Jesus wants us to live our lives and live what he planned for us. So by us like going out and partying just because we're told it's fun and we should be living our lives, that's not what Jesus wants us to do. He wants us to better ourselves.
Do you have an example of a time in your life when you chose to do something different than your friends because you wanted to follow Jesus?
Yep, I can think of a time when I had a group of friends, and one of the kids in our group was really just not really connecting with us anymore and kind of falling in deep parts of sin and kind of rejecting all of us. And a normal response for all of us was to kind of reject her back. And I decided, I really felt like God was telling me, you really need to be in this girl's life. Don't leave her alone. And it was very hard because she was really involved in things that weren't good. So, of course, the rest of my friends kind of took that and thought, oh, she's following what she's doing. And it was just so weird to them that I was trying to put her first, even though she was in such a dark place. And, you know, my friends aren't Christians. And so it really puzzled them why I was doing it and why I was trying to make time for someone who was treating me terribly.
Like, you know, I know at my school there's a lot of kids that will go into the bathroom and vape during like passing period, or they'll just sneak out of class to go do that, unfortunately. But I choose not to do that.
That connects with me too, because if you don't follow what they're doing, like vaping in the bathroom, you're going to get judged back for it. And so it definitely gets difficult to kind of fight back on that part of culture too.
I think something I've done that's kind of counterculture is just kind of accepting the new norms and the new kind of standards that this generation has put, because they're really different from kind of what it's been like the past few decades. And so kind of just not just kind of fitting in, and I'm kind of like, staying out, I guess.
What's something you learned from this conversation?
That fighting culture, imperfect humans say for us to do, because we're just as imperfect. It sucks to not go with what everybody says, but we have God and we know that He has a better plan for us. And so we should be fighting back on that culture and setting a good example for our friends.
Yeah, I think I learned that, since everyone else is sinful, that their opinions, don't matter, obviously, compared to the one person that's sinless, and that's, the person that we should follow, and not the people that are, sinful.
I think something I got out of this is ignoring culture it's not a bad thing at all. We're being leaders in that way to other people who do follow culture, and people do notice, like, if you are different, and they will question, like, why are you like that? And that gives you a chance to, tell them about the gospel.
I would say just not following the people that are doing the bad stuff or saying the wrong things or just doing anything that's bad.
What's one influence in your life that you need more of? And what's one influence in your life that you need less of?
One influence I need in my life is more godly people, and one that I don't need is caring what other people think about me.
One influence I need more of is just God's opinion, and one I need less of is the world's opinion.
I think I need more influence with God's truth and less influence with secular music or just music that doesn't glorify God.
I need more influence from what God says about me and less of what other people say about me.